Globally, Kenya is famous for scoring many firsts. Its excellence in athletics is legendary. Similarly, the country's excellence in tea production remains unmatched the world over. Kenya takes pride in being one of the world's leading black tea producers. The country occupies the top slot in black tea exports globally, providing 23% of all CTC tea exports at the global tea market in 2009. The taste, the crispness, the strength and the aroma inherent in Kenya tea are qualities that have positioned Kenya tea as the preferred tea at the global markets. Abundant blessings from the natural environment has played a big role in making this possible. Located astride the equator, Kenya enjoys favorable weather conditions that permit year-round production. This geographical advantage ensures all-year leaf availability and consistent high-quality supply to the global tea market. These rich alluvial volcanic soils feed the lush green tea fields found on the Kenyan highlands. Favorable climatic conditions with uniform rainfall distribution throughout the year, interspersed with sunny conditions, provide an environment ideal for the production of the superior quality teas that brew the most rich and pungent liquors.
Tanzania is home to the highest mountain in Africa, the spectacular Mount Kilimanjaro. Just a short distance to the north of the mountain lies the Manyara region, a vast semi-arid and productive region with an oasis of mountains and productive forests, the source of dozens of mountain fresh-flowing rivers. This natural blessing has been under intense threat in the last few decades. Inhabited by a fast-expanding community of smallholder farmers and herders, the inevitable human encroachment into the forest reserves led to extensive destruction of forest resources. Unchecked commercial forest resource exploitation did not help matters. In an effort to reverse this trend, the government of Tanzania introduced the Participatory Forest Management Policy in 1998, advocating for the involvement of communities in management and conservation of forests. The policy, however, remained largely unimplemented and ineffective as a forest conservation strategy, with an estimated 130 to 180,000 hectares of forest being lost every year.
The River Nile is the longest river in the world. Touching parts of 10 countries and draining approximately 10% of Africa's landmass, the River Nile Basin is an environment endowed with a variety of natural resources and rich cultural history.
The Nile environment is host to a spectacular range of ecosystems, from high mountains, tropical forests, woodlands and wetlands in the south to savannas and deserts in the north. It is also home to a great range of flora and fauna. Most importantly, it is home to 160 million people spread in 10 riparian countries who derive a livelihood from its resources.
In spite of its rich endowment, the Nile environment is host to some of the world's poorest nations. High poverty levels, compounded with rapid population growth in the member countries in recent years, has put enormous pressure on the natural resources and ecological systems of the Nile Basin. Adverse environmental threats continue to undermine the efforts of the Nile riparian countries to propagate sustainable economic development in the region.
Poverty and conflict in the Nile Basin is the single greatest threat to the environment. I described it as the longest river in the world and one of the most important rivers in the world, but there's not a lot of water in the river system. It's vulnerable to climate change. vulnerable to desertification, vulnerable to all sorts of degradation because of sedimentation.
The pain that AIDS orphans experience in our society is evident. Ill health, malnutrition, stigma and isolation, loss of inheritance, and lack of basic services are just some of the challenges they have to live with. With an estimated 1.8 million AIDS orphans in Kenya, some policies and legal framework have been put in place to safeguard the welfare of the orphans and other vulnerable children. The Children's Act and the National Program Guidelines on Orphans and Other Children Made Vulnerable by HIV and AIDS are some of the frameworks that provide protection and support for the orphans. In spite of this, the burden of caring for AIDS orphans still rests in the hands of close relatives and extended family members in the community. This is in line with the African extended family structure. Take the case of Susan Duko, a grandmother in her 60s living in the Fuatanyayo slums of Nairobi. Susan was left with the burden of caring for 8 children when both her daughter and sister were claimed by HIV and AIDS.
Watoto niko nao ni sister yangu. Alikuwa na TV na akavalija kaniwachia. Lakini si kuwachilia waende sokola. Tukangangana nao. Sasa ndio natunza hata ya sasa. Tunakaa kwa nyumba hii, unaona vile tunakaa pamoja na hiyo watoto. Na mimi nachukumana nao mpaka skuli nitaka. Siwaji wachelea.
This determination and resilience, typical of the African woman, is evident in the life of another grandmother in her 70s, Mukonyo Mudhama. Mukonyo lives with her 5 grandchildren in the Sophia slums of Athi River. She lost her daughter to HIV and AIDS. She works her heart out to ensure her grandchildren have something to eat and they attend school.
Unsafe abortion is a serious problem, but on daily basis there are very many women suffering, there are others dying, and the largest study in this country was conducted by the Ministry of Health, which revealed that every year 316,000 women have abortion, and out of them 21,000 are admitted in public health facilities, specifically hospitals in the public sector. Some of them survive, some die, and it is estimated that about 3,000 of them die.
Nilikuwa mwendo wa saa 3 wakati watu walikuja kwangu wakaingia wakiwa na ukali sana. Kuingia hapo kwa nyumba wakaanza kuniuliza maswali, ndio walichukua hatua mikononi mwao na kuniangusha chini. Mmoja akakuja na kunifanya vibaya. Baada ya huyo mwingine tena naye akaingia. Baada ya huyo mwingine naye akakuja akaingia naye akafanya hiyo maneno mabaya na kutoka. Sasa wakati alitoka mimi nikajaribu kupiga nduru hakuna majirani. Wakati huyo bwana yangu wakati alikuja siku nyingine nilimwambia jua hao wanaume wako analalanga nyumbani, walikuwa analalanga nje juu ya vita. Akakuja nikamwambia vyenye kulienda, kumwambia akuka ndio alinitoroka. Ndio sasa nikakaa wiki 2 hivi. Nikasikia mwili wangu umebadilika. Nikajua ya kwamba tayari nimeshapata mimba. Nilisumbuka rohoni sana, nikakaa na mawazo.
At the point when they decided to do this, they have agonized for many days, for many weeks, and even months, wondering what to do, and they have considered options of what to do.
Baada ya mwezi mmoja, nikiwa na mawazo hiyo, nikaenda kwa rafiki yangu. Nikamueleza vyenye maneno yangu, yani maisha yangu imekuwa magumu. Akaniambia kama ninataka dawa, nikamwambia ndio. Sikuwa na uoga wote, juu nilikuwa nimeamua afadhali kukufa badala ya kuona shida. Ninajua tu nitaweza toa mimba nife, na nitaweza toa mimba niwe mgonjwa, niwe siwezi kujisaidia.
Gender-based violence is shrouded in much secrecy and misinformation. The sad reality only reveals itself when the victims gather the courage to open up.
He tried his best and broke the door. As usual, he climbed in my bed, then he had sex with me.
I was so sad. I cried. I didn't know what to do for some days.
Kaenda visiti. The first thing nikupatikana niko positive.
She was so badly beaten, her whole body was swollen. The husband was using a hammer on her face.
Some of the victims of gender-based violence who gathered the courage to open up to us requested that they remain anonymous due to the stigma that the subject invites. The sad reality, however, is that violence against women is very common in our communities. It transcends all social classes, ethnic groups, and races. Sexual abuse is another very common form of gender-based violence. Sexual violence manifests itself in form of forced sexual intercourse or rape, sexual harassment at workplaces, sexual taunts, or insults. The worst sexual violations occur in contexts of intimate relationships. Uncles, cousins, and other close relatives known to the victims are the worst perpetrators. Grace, a minor of 10 years in Standard 3, walks with a limp after her pelvises were damaged by a molesting relative and guardian.
Nilikuwa ni jirani tu watu tunacheza pamoja, ajua yeye yuko standard kubwa. Standard 8 sisi tuko standard 3. Kwa mfano hivi tumepewa homework ndio huwa tunamuuliza. Sasa tumezoeana tu kama majirani. Nilipoenda chooni, jirani akanifuata huko chooni. Akanishika, akanireka.
The psychological trauma that such a girl experiences is likely to remain with her for life. Physical and verbal abuse is used to break the guard of the girls, making rape a compound violation consisting of physical, sexual, and emotional violence. Incest is fast becoming common in Kenya. At 15, this girl was saved by neighbors from her incestuous father after her mother left him due to his violent behavior. This other girl, whose case is now in court, was abused for 6 years by her father. At 16 and in Form 3, she is now pregnant out of a forced incestuous relationship. How did it all start?
Kenya Revenue Authority is now ISO certified. To mark this achievement, His Excellency the Vice President, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, will on the 14th of July 2008 unveil KRA's ISO certificate at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. KRA is committed to excellent service delivery and aims to adhere to international best practice to be the leading revenue authority in the world, respected for professionalism, integrity, and fairness.